This is the plane which the world believes is state-of-the-art technology. But it's not. Somewhere in secret, its replacement may already be flying, leaving unexplained traces in the night sky.
You get a light up there in the sky, and light could be caused by a lot of different things, and you have 10 different observers all looking at that light. Each of those 10 observers is going to see something else. Someone will see God, someone will see Jesus, someone will see a UFO, others will see conspiracies.
Amid this uncertainty, people are left to speculate and wonder.
We're being visited by extraterrestrial beings. We're possibly confronting beings from maybe another dimension, perhaps our own future. We really don't know, and that's the beauty of it.
We're dealing with technologies that are 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. Not what you can think or what we're doing today, but what you can just visualize in your mind. 50 years beyond that, and they're working on it.
This is the story of a journey along the frontier between what is real and what is imagined. At its heart is the secret defense establishment of the richest nation on Earth. I'm Nick Cook. I'm the aviation editor of Jane's Defence Weekly, a trade publication that reports on the inner workings of the defence business. Over recent years, it's been impossible for me to ignore this kind of barrage of publicity we've been hearing about unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. So I've decided to embark on a journey to see if I can get to the core of what may or may not be going on. Now, the only real clue I have, given that most of the reports of UFOs, or at least a lot of them, come from America, is this document here, which is the annually published list of defense spending put out by the Pentagon. Inside this document is every single conceivable item of military equipment that America is likely to buy for its armed forces. But if you add up all the line items inside this budget book, and you subtract their total from the annual published total of $250 billion that the Pentagon reports to Congress, you find that there's a mismatch of about $30 billion. Now, this is what we call the black budget, or America's billion-dollar secret, which is reserved for deeply classified programs. Now, I'm wondering whether inside this classified pot of money, there may be some relationship between, say, deeply classified aircraft, which is something I know about, and what people commonly report as unidentified flying objects. So over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be crisscrossing America, talking to people, visiting facilities, to see whether I can find the truth. There are two worlds of defense, a white world you can see and a black world you can't.
Before you get too far away, how about a big round of applause for Thunderbird number 8, one of the best narrators.
Aerospace exhibitions are part of the white world, but behind them lies a realm of secrecy and super technology, way beyond anything they put on show.
Hi, Tony. How you doing?
Fine. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Hi. Hello.
The white world is an interesting enough place, but it's the hidden part, the black world, that interests me. At its center, away from all this glitz and show, is a mysterious airbase called Area 51. a place that has become a mecca for UFO watchers and serious defense analysts alike. Area 51 would be my ultimate destination, but getting there would turn out to be a journey as much through the mind as on the road. Well, I've reached Fort Worth. The reason I'm here is because a while back I was interviewing a guy called Bob Widmer. Now it transpires that 40 odd years ago, Bob Widmer, as the head of design at what was then General Dynamics Combat, was working on a program, very, very secret program called FISH, sometimes known as Kingfish. And this was a requirement that the CIA needed for a very fast-flying spy plane. And he competed against a different company at the time. Now, the staggering point to me in this story is that Bob Widmer's design lost the competition for this CIA spy plane. But today, that is some 45 years on from when he was designing it, it's still classified.
We had a program called the Super Hustler. The CIA came here and visited me one day. And they said, wasn't there something I could do with this technology? So we tried to come up with an airplane that was as near as possible to a saucer.
And did you?
And we did.
Where is it?
We shaped it. Well, we shaped this. That's the fish.
That's the fish. Does the
Sure.
fish look like a saucer?
Well, not completely. I told you we used the saucer as a start. So with the front, you see,
Looks.
and then we took the back and we notched. We had to take it and a piece of it, but it really wasn't. It really wasn't. It was as close as we could get. It was always the ideal that we used. We can't do any better than we can with a treated saucer. That was sort of the goal that we used.
This is the plane that won the competition, the Lockheed-built Blackbird. For years, its performance, even at times its existence, was kept totally secret. But bit by bit, the data began to leak out, that it was the fastest, highest flying plane ever built, used for top-secret reconnaissance missions all over the world. It's a classic example of a black program gradually turning white. To find out more about FISH, Bob Widmer's design, I went first to the CIA, but even 40 years on it was still classified. So I asked Bob instead.
I don't have a copy. I don't have it.
Are you not allowed to have a copy of it?
I don't know, when these rules were made, get me? When the rules were made, to close the door, shut the door, and that's it.
Secret.
Well, it was a class higher than secret. The doors were shut. That meant that whatever I had in my files, or what everyone else had, all was gathered together and was done. And a lot of it was then burned and destroyed.
And this is for a project that never actually flew.
That's true.
45 odd years ago.
That's true.
How do you explain that? I was intrigued by Bob Widmer's 45-year-old fish design. What fascinated me most was that some aspects of it didn't seem too far away from a black world project that apparently exists right now. Ask officially and everyone will deny it. But the strong rumor is that America already has a plane in the skies to replace Blackbird. It's called Aurora and goes faster and higher than its predecessor. So I'm here to talk to a congressman who's been asking awkward questions about it on Capitol Hill. Do you know whether Aurora exists?
I have not, it has not been verified to me through legitimate channels. that the aurora exists. And thus, if it does exist, I have not been able to find out the information about the project that I would need to know as chairman of the Space Subcommittee that would enable me to see that technologies that were developed for the aurora could be part of our calculations as to how much should go into the budget, into our space budget.
You wrote to President Clinton requesting declassification of the black budget.
And the only word back that I received from the president was a letter acknowledging my letter, and we haven't received a letter answering my specific request about releasing information about black programs, especially about aurora, if it exists.
Are you yourself a believer in aurora?
Well, if I had to bet the mortgage, I would probably come down on the side of saying there is an aurora, and that there's something out there that was developed in the latter years of the Cold War that uses some kind of a scramjet or ramjet that goes to 6 to 8 times the speed of sound and probably unmanned, made with the latest materials and technology and engines and craft. I would think there is, because there's been too many sightings and too many people who are reliable sources that what they've seen is inexplicable except for that.
I too share Congressman Rohrabacher's hunch that something has been developed. Blackbird had been flying for at least 3 years before anyone admitted its existence. In Aurora's case, it would certainly explain where some of the Pentagon's missing billions have gone. All over America, there are people who are picking away at the secrets of the black world. I'd heard about one of them, a guy called Steve Douglas in Amarillo, Texas, who even claimed to have seen something that could have been aurora.
Well, it happened on a spring day here a few years ago. I was in my office monitoring military traffic, just like I always do, when I heard some unusual traffic, and then a huge roar and rumble, like the sky splitting apart, shaking the house. You could actually feel this rumble in your chest. So I went outside to see what was making the commotion, and here came this aircraft at breakneck speed, flying from southwest to northeast, right over the town. Well, I grabbed my camera, and by the time I got back out there, of course, the aircraft was gone because it was flying so fast. But it left this unique contrail, this spotted string of pearls like a donuts on a rope, right across the sky. So I shot some pictures of the contrail.
In itself, the contrail doesn't add up to evidence of aurora's existence. As with everything you discover on the fringes of the black world and the white, it's a question of putting small pieces into a larger jigsaw. Douglas is determined to find rational explanations for what other people simply call UFOs, but my instinct tells me there's much more to it than this.
I think the security managers have been actively encouraging flying saucer reports about sightings around their facility. Because if everybody thinks you have people just out there seeing flying saucers, it makes it a lot easier to hide highly classified aircraft.
I'd spoken to John Pike before I left Washington. He's been making the connection between UFO sightings and top-secret aircraft for years.
A lot of the reconnaissance balloons that the Central Intelligence Agency was flying back in the 1950s and high-flying aircraft in the early 1960s, according to a CIA study, accounted for a lot of flying saucer reports back then. When you look up in the sky, the question of whether you see a high-flying aircraft or whether you see a flying saucer may just depend on what you saw on television the previous night.
Much of me agreed, But I needed the other side of the story, a story I'd never investigated before because it had always seemed two-way out. Someone had pointed me towards Jim Mars, an authority on UFOs and conspiracies.
In the military mind, the UFOs would represent advanced technology. And of course to them, advanced technology then represents potential weaponry. And therefore they've got to keep it all secret. You got to keep it secret from your enemies, and then you got to keep it secret from your own people so that your enemies don't get it, etc., etc.
Is the UFO phenomenon about alien beings, or is there an earthly dimension to it as well?
Well, that's the real question, isn't it? I'm often asked, do UFOs represent spaceship from another planet, or do they come from another dimension, or do they come from another time, or are they simply advanced technology being tested by our governments? And I would tell you that the answer is yes. All of the above.
It's dead easy to dismiss a lot of these people as cranky or deluded, but the one thing I've learned after years in the business is never to dismiss something as impossible simply because you can't imagine it happening. Time was when traveling in space was laughed off as fiction, but it happened sure enough, and much of it was developed here at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama. NASA is still the place where dreams come true. Some people call it the white face of the black world.
There's probably more money pumping through this one NASA facility than there is through the entire British aerospace scientific establishment. And this is what I find incredible about America, is that you can get so much technology concentrated in one place. But you also realize that the stuff is everywhere. It's across the entire country.
Monitors are reporting that the spacecraft is go for launch.
Hydraulics go. SSC, hydraulics internal.
T-minus 15 seconds and counting.
Rocket launches at Cape Kennedy are what the public see, but I wanted to get inside the heads of the dream makers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition and we have liftoff of NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter as we continue to explore the mysteries of the red planet. View from the second stage of the Boeing Delta II vehicle as we continue to rise 20 seconds after liftoff. Everything continues to go well.
There's an awful lot goes on here. A lot of it is current science, stuff that's happening here and now. Essentially rocket technology, things that really haven't changed too much since World War II. But there's also an awful lot which is way, way out Tomorrowland. And one or two people I hope to be speaking to here should have a very insightful view into the future, and we're probably talking decades, if not hundreds of years out in terms of space travel.
Wonderful view of the Earth's limb as we rise above the Earth's surface with our Mars Climate Orbiter.
What I really wanted to know was, were there revolutionary forms of propulsion available that would explain the otherwise impossible?
The nearest star, Alpha Centauri, is 4 light years away. We're looking at, already today, breakthrough physics, physical phenomena that has not been proven yet, that will be required to make a fast trip to the Alpha Centauri system. Antimatter-driven fusion drives, space warp, ways to get to other stars in a Star Trek type fashion. If we're not thinking about that kind of stuff today, we won't be going to the stars in 100 years. I guarantee it. Just like I can guarantee, because we didn't start looking at the technology to go to Mars back during the Apollo era, we're not there today. And if we had been thinking about that at the close of that era, we would be there and have it colonized today.
So we need to be thinking about it now.
Absolutely.
It may seem a long way from secret aircraft, but the inspiration for what NASA is doing is driven by the same impulse, to turn dreams into reality. One person I met even talked seriously about beating the speed of light by bending space, in effect to bring the stars closer to us. It's called traveling through a wormhole.
We're used to dealing with space in 3 dimensions. You get from point A to point B, you follow a straight line. A wormhole is based on the idea that you can actually curve space. That gravity, Einstein discovered that gravity actually curves large masses curve space. Well, the same thing goes with a wormhole. Basically, you're curving and distorting space, so you don't have to follow the normal dimensions. You just sort of go up and out into a 4th dimension, if you will, and that allows you to go beyond and go much faster, effectively, than the speed of light. The speed of light, is something that pertains to the 3 dimensions. The space that we deal with day to day, but it allows you to get out of that space and go above that, up and out, so to speak.
So it does offer the possibility of crossing the universe.
Yeah, if you can build a wormhole, certainly. Yeah, you probably, who knows? But you got to be careful to make sure that you have the right endpoint. Who knows where you'll end up if you just generate it? You could end up anywhere in the universe. So that's something to be very careful about.
Hearing someone talk this way, I knew the detour to NASA hadn't been a waste. Though they say this stuff is way in the future, just how far away is anyone's guess. Maybe in the black world, some of it was a lot closer to reality than anyone at NASA believed, or cared to admit.
Well, I've always been extremely excited by this landscape. It's the sort of landscape that allows you to believe that anything is possible. I look up into that big old sky and that enormous horizon. Because there is absolutely nothing like it where I come from, it does fill you with this sort of strange belief that anything is possible out here.
I think that New Mexico is an important state for UFO sightings for a variety of reasons, but one primarily, at least in the paranormal level, has to do with that act of magic we committed in 1945 by detonating an atomic bomb.